A very good morning to all of you. Welcome back to Ansarkari. So, taking up next set of important topics for the UPSC Civil Services examination and a personality development. We are taking these topics from 13th of November. So, India-Russia trade. So, we are seeing significant progress in this, and the dynamics have changed specifically after 2022. So, here the challenges are in terms of the payments because we are also initiating the payments in Indian rupees or the promotion of payments in local currency, or as we talk about, step towards de-dollarization. Another challenge is in logistics. So, however, we have seen trade has increased fourfold between India and Russia, and some major initiatives regarding the connectivity includes the international north-south transport corridor. Then there is Chennai Vladivostok corridor is there, and then North Sea route is there. So these are three major and very significant examples as far as connectivity and trade is concerned between India and Russia. So be it food energy, be it food security, or it is related to energy, because we have seen 40% share of Russia increasing in India's crude oil imports, or health security. Then fertilizers, specifically of late after the Russia-Ukraine war, it is begin. We've seen the fertilizer prices that has also spiked because even Russia is also one of the major players who's exporting fertilizer in the international market. And then when it comes to the supply of the critical minerals, for example, even uranium, oil, and coal, so that is also important. And also from the perspective of growth of India's pharmaceutical industry, that is also been, we can say, promoted between India and Russia. So India has the vision of again promoting multilateralism, and again that is being done through different mechanisms, be it through regional free trade agreements or promoting regional trade or even bilateral free trade agreements. So we have the target of $100 billion of trade by 2030 between India and Russia. So bottlenecks in terms of payments, SWIFT payment system, we see that after this war has begun, Russia-Ukraine war, US has put sanctions on Russia. So that has led to, like, Russia cannot use a SWIFT international payment system to make payments. So that is why this bottleneck will be resolved through making payments in rupee through Vostro accounts. And now we can say that almost 90% of the trade between India and Russia, the payments are being done in the local currency. So that's also a very big achievement. CO2 emissions set to rise 0.8% this year. India's contribution goes up by 4.6%. But when we are talking about common but differentiated responsibilities, historical responsibilities of the developed countries, in that comparison, India's share is very, very minimal, or it is, we can say, very meager in terms of per capita CO2 emissions. So this is as per 2024 Global Carbon Budget Project. Fossil carbon dioxide CO2 emissions of 37 billion tons, which is increased by 0.8%. So you can see China is the largest emitter, and followed by US, and then we have India here. So here's a look at the country level fossil CO2 emissions. So we see that COP29 is still, it's ongoing in Baku, is in Azerbaijan, to deliberate on the ways to cut the carbon emissions. So we see some progress has been made. We'll discuss that further. So for here, the data is important, and achieving again a common agreement on the climate finance is significant in order to take certain steps. So global carbon budget. This collective of approximately 120 scientists, it is they're publishing their annual peer-reviewed estimates of the changes, how atmospheric changes of greenhouse gases emissions has been happening. So Paris Agreement 2015 explicitly it states that world must strive to prevent the temperature from exceeding 2 degrees Celsius from the pre-industrial levels. And we are seeing that no significant progress has been seen in terms of mitigating the greenhouse gases emissions. So NDCs are under the Paris Agreement. And here also India is showcasing promising developments in terms of the achievement. So the study is estimating 50% chance that the remaining carbon budget here and the quantity of the carbon that can be held in the atmosphere before 1.5 degrees Celsius target that is breached consistently is about 60 years. It is 6 years. So important news about science. So a team at Kolkata Institute engineers bacteria to solve maths problems. So here it is the Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics. The scientists introduced genetic circuits in the bacteria. that can be activated by a combination of chemical inducers, and uske baad they combine that bacteria with the different engineered circuits in the solution to build bacterial computers, so that behave like artificial neural networks. So you can talk about this combination genetic circuits. So bacteria and the chemical inducers combined together form the bacterial computers. So organisms which are generally they are called as intelligent, which includes dolphins, chimpanzees, octopus, crows, and humans, are on the other hand they're multicellular. So here we see that despite this bacteria being single celled, they are very sensitive and responsive to their environments. So usage or leveraging on this benefit of neurons, so artificial neural networks processing units called nodes, they are connected to each other in different layers then. So during this transcription, which is happening in these bacteria or the bacteria computers, the bacteria is now transcribing a part of its DNA into the RNA, and it reads from that RNA to make further protein. So this is basically the basic function of the RNA, protein synthesis. Transcription factors recognize the specific DNA sequences called promoters. So you can talk about here the advancements in science and technology that we are seeing. So chemistry of input and output, breaking new ground. So it might help us in solving a few mathematical problems, which or the dilemmas or the problems or the theories that still remains half-baked. So scientists uncover a mix-up about Uranus. So Voyager 2 observations, it left a misimpression about the magnetosphere of Uranus as lacking in plasma and possessing uncommonly intense belts of highly energetic electrons. So Uranus is also a gas giant. As we talk about, it is like it is beyond the asteroid belt. So the first four planets, they are called the terrestrial planets because they are made of rocky surface. And we just need to remember it is NASA's mission. Voyager 2 is related to Uranus. So plasma, as we know, it is the fourth state of matter after solids, liquids, and gases. It's a gas whose atoms have been split into high energy subatomic particles. So its plasma is a common feature in the magnetosphere of other planets also. So it's low concentration observed around Uranus that was puzzling. So magnetosphere जो है, even we have it around the Earth's atmosphere also. So this is usually formed of plasma from the solar wind and plasma from any moon which are present inside the magnetosphere and the plasma from the atmosphere of the planet. So that's how the magnetosphere that is comprised and it is formed. So Voyager 2 observation, it is suggested its two largest moons of Uranus, Titania and Oberon, they often orbit outside this layer of magnetosphere. So also this layer is also known to be the protective layer. So debating the healthy longevity initiative. So we have several reports when we're seeing that of late, when we're talking about health. So this report, it is published by World Bank. So this is one important fact, which is called the unlocking the power of healthy longevity. And so it is stating three important factors: the demographic changes which are visible, non-communicable diseases which are on the rise, and thirdly, human capital importance. All these three together combined, they are very, very important pillars for the sustainable economic growth as well. So in terms of demographic changes, we are seeing aging populations on the rise. And even in case of India, we state that by 2050, 20% of the population would be the elderly population or the dependent population. So in terms of the low and middle income countries, we are seeing they are facing this challenge of increasing non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular diseases, cancer, chronic respiratory diseases, and diabetes. So even the Lancet report of 2018, it is also emphasizing on the same thing, that we are seeing that different countries, there is a failure to devise a proper strategy, proper policy to deal with this challenge. So it will jeopardize the SDG 3 goal, which is good health and well-being, and the target 4 of one-third reduction in premature mortalities from the national from this NCDs or the non-communicable diseases by 2030. So the targets and the facts are important. So in 1990, when we look at the figures for India for these NCDs, they accounted for 40% of all the Indian mortality rate. And now they're projected to account for three quarters of all the deaths by 2030. So you can imagine the scale of increase. So in India, almost these NCDs account for 50% of all the deaths as per Lancet report 2018. So it is because of, again, tobacco use, alcohol abuse, obesity due to sedentary lifestyles and the diets, they are causing a problem where high consumption of carbohydrates and saturated fats is leading to these problems of obesity, of diabetes. So impact of the social security schemes, what measures can be taken up by the government? So here we see that social security schemes on the part of the fiscal policy by the government, that is one important measures. But that we can say is it is not directly impacting how we are mitigating the number of the NCDs firstly. So in terms of this, we can talk about the preventive care. We can talk about generating awareness amongst the people uh, about active lifestyle or the lifestyle that they're following, or importance of healthy diet in your life, and the impact that it has on your health. That's very important. And the role of, again, ASHA and Anganwadi workers are the frontline workers, healthcare workers. That's important in terms of awareness generation. And also on the part of the food processing industries, proper regulation of the standards and the nutritional standards or the nutrients which needs to be mentioned. That's important. So the role of the regulators like Food Safety and Standards Authority of India is important here. And like of late also we are talking about the robotic surgeries, so how they are uh, very precise, and they are reducing the pain, they are reducing the time of the surgeries and the operations which are happening, and more of success rate is also being seen, less like loss of blood is seen to be there. So even like these social security schemes can help us in terms of reducing the out of pocket expenditure to a certain limit. Like of late we see that Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, the population above 70 years of age is also being included in the beneficiaries. So along with this, nutritional security is important. So Indians at much younger age and at a lower body mass index than the Western population. So type 2 diabetes is seen to be most common amongst such type of population. Even CAG report is there of 2023. So it says large number of ineligible beneficiaries. There are long delays in the empanelment of the hospitals. Surgeries performed after the discharge and utilization certificates without signature of the competent authorities. So these are certain challenges. And then importance of the health insurance also. So we need to increase its penetration level at the same time. So hospital expenses, when talking about, again, the out-of-pocket expenditure. So right now in India, like 75% of the healthcare is provided by the private sector. So the role or the participation or the share of public sector also needs to increase. So the private hospitals are notorious for inflated prices of the healthcare. So even the role of the generic medicines industry is important here, pharmaceuticals. So Supreme Court of India directed the central government in Feb 2024 to find ways to regulate the rates of the hospital procedures, because every hospital has its own way of pricing these procedures. So there needs to be a common practice which needs to be regulated, which needs to have a proper standard-based scientific method of determining the prices. And then behavioral changes holds the key, specifically when it comes to prevention of the rise of NCDs. Like unbalanced high-calorie diet intake promotes weight gains. Lack of physical activity seem to be there. So we need to limit the tobacco consumption at the same time. We see that tobacco consumption, it's a sin good. So it is taxed at very higher tax rate of 28%. Mixed report card for the IMEC. So this was proposed under the G20 summit, which was held in India in 2023. So India, Middle East, Europe corridor was proposed. So it is talking about the progress so far about it. So progress on both the ends are visible. So the past year we see various challenges. They have delayed the progress. First is again the Russia-Ukraine war, and then again the instability in the war that began in Israel and Israel versus Hamas. So instability in the Western Asian region also has contributed to certain roadblock here. And it is very important to promote India's, again, trade and exports. So this is kind of an alternative route to gain access to European countries and also promote trade with the Central Asian and the West Asian countries at the same time. So implementation of the northern part of the corridor is going to move slowly until the West Asian conflict it subsides. So this is in a way a third tier impact of this West Asian conflict on this progress. Because on the eastern leg, it is connecting the UAE and the Indian ports on the eastern side. Western side, it is getting connected with the West Asian countries. So apart from this, like when we're talking about the UAE and Indian ports and the relationship, so recently, like if we talk about the comprehensive economic partnership agreements in 2022, our bilateral trade has also been growing, not just in terms of security, but also tourism, in terms of student exchange. And we are further diversifying our trade basket. So growing non-oil trade between India and UAE. So it was at approximately $58 billion in 2023-24. So a healthy shift is also visible towards diversification. So that is also one of the policies or the strategy of India also in order to increase our exports. So IMEC, it's aimed at reduction of administrative processes and time, reduction of logistics and transportation costs to make the exports and trade more competitive and promote ease of doing trade. What India can do, we can especially use this time to prepare our ports, develop our own specific economic zones along the connectivity nodes, like we have the Sagarmala project or the Bharatmala project, and then the Sagar initiative, also the security and growth for all in the region, and port-led development vision that we have. So we can work upon these factors, like even the PM Gati Shakti project is linked to this. So domestic logistics for the seamless integration with the IMAC. So domestic logistic landscapes needs more competitiveness as far as India is concerned, because our logistic cost is still it is above the international average. So international average is somewhere close to 4%. In India, it is 8%. So we aim to position ourselves as a global supply chain alternative. So for that, we need to make our domestic players competitive. Manufacturing competitiveness is also linked to this. Yesterday, we have covered about the importance of, again, shipbuilding in India. So the role of Concord is very important. Role of private players is very important, and even declaration of the ship as an asset. So that amendment is also needed so that the banks can safely lend to different industries which are linked to ship construction and shipbuilding, because then the risk factors related to such types of loans and assets increases for the bank, and the chances of NPAs also increases. So that is one shift that is needed. No invite from India for, so Nepal's prime minister, it heads to China on the first visit abroad. So he states that there was no invite from India. That is why he heads towards China. So this is one thing that India has been closely monitoring, the China-Nepal relationship. So often we say that Nepal is seen to be a buffer state between China and India. So an unrealized gender dividend. So for India, the demographic dividend window is up till 2056, according to UNFPA, and which is sufficiently longer, comparatively longer than other countries had this opportunity to leverage. So first here it is talking about gender dividend has not been realized in India. So firstly, women, we're talking about women today are not held back by the social constraints. Not just only social constraints, they are also one of the factors, but access to education and mobility and lack of employment opportunities. These are the factors which hold back women's participation, be it in the gross enrollment ratio in the education sector, even the labor force participation rate, when it comes to lack of employment opportunities and skills mismatch. So that's there. And currently, women labor force participation rate we know is at 37%, which is again lower than the world average. So Indian Human Development Surveys, which are organized by University of Maryland and the National Council of Applied Economic Research, they have tracked different changes which are happening in the lives of the Indian households between 2004 and 2024. So when we have a look at the data, so there is an aspirational transformation that is to be noticed that young Indian women in 2020s are living through compared to their sisters who came of age in the first decade of the century. Also, Indian parents, they have increased their investments in developing their daughters' capabilities. This is one parental aspiration for their children that we can see has been increasing equally for the girl child. So expansion of girlhood, it allowed women to expand control over their own lives. This we can say is also one of the impacts of globalization. So young women also began to expand their connection with the world around them. Proportion of women who felt comfortable traveling a short distance alone by bus or train grew from 42% to 54%. Membership of the SHGs has increased massively. And also recently, when we're talking about increasing the participation of women in the political arena, so the Women Reservation Bill has been passed. So these are not, however, revolutionary changes. That is the concern as of now. So one area where a transformation is not even begin relates to economic opportunities for women. Still, we see gender-based discrimination even in terms of recruitment or the employment opportunities on the basis of gender, like when we're talking about the pink-collar jobs. Or even the permanent commission to women in the military forces has been uh, announced recently. So women continue to contribute to the economy by working in the family farms, and the periodic labor force survey it is also documented substantial increase in their work. So this is where you say feminization of agriculture, participation by women in the wage labor has stagnated when we're talking about even MG Narega. So some of it may be due to the increased college enrollment, which is a positive thing. And also here there is one challenge that however the women enrollment in higher education has been increasing, but that is not translating into their increased participation as a labor force in the economy. So there are also certain social factors or the safety related to women travel are blocking them or blocking their participation. So, of the four key areas that define women's empowerment, personal efficiency, power in intra household negotiations, societal engagement, or access to income generating activities, we see improvements in the first three domains only. So, access to income generating activities needs to be reformed further, has stagnated. However, we see women participation also increasing in the STEM sector, and skilling is very important. Translating again that enroll women in the higher education needs to uh, participate or as again the workforce or the labor force. Center notifies new Water Act rules. So under the Water Prevention Control of Pollution Act, new rules is being implemented. So it is related to offenses and violations of the act. They were decriminalized, replacing them with the penalties instead now. And this is also, we can say, one measure related to decolonization at the same time. So now the amendments that has also allowed the center to appoint the officers to adjudicate the offenses, violations, and determine penalties. The Central Pollution Control Board, State Pollution Control Boards, and the Pollution Control Committees and integrated regional offices of the Ministry of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change in their respective jurisdictions through their authorized officers, they can file a complaint to the adjudicating officer regarding any contravention which are committed under several sections. So more strengthening of the act, and this might be again one positive measure towards climate mitigation. So deliberate violence is more to be quenched than a fire. So deliberate is the keyword here. Deliberate, which is intentionally being done and promoted. That is can say causes major harm to the social harmony, like be it through hate speech. So curbing and curtailing of hate speech, specifically during elections, is very, very important. And when we can link it with the reforms in the new criminal laws that has been recently implemented. So that's very important. Less global world. So a less global, it is no longer, we can say, as global as it was earlier. So we can talk about here globalization 2.0 or re-globalization, or the multilateral institutions, they face greater challenges during the Donald Trump second term. Particularly, it is in this context. So the changes, expected changes, and the challenges we have already discussed in detail so far. So first, it is talking about APEC. So it includes Azerbaijan. This is the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, and how it will be impacting the multilateralism, whether it would be again increasing the protectionist attitude further, because we have certain again forecast or the expectations that he would be imposing higher tariffs in order to reduce the trade deficit of USA. Then concerns related to human rights because of again the measures against immigration and illegal immigrants particularly. Also the working of WTO will come under scanner further, because it was earlier under Trump 1.0 regime only when the dispute settlement mechanism and the appointments related to that was blocked under his regime. So again, America First doctrine. So multilateralism, be it economic, political, or institutional, reached its peak. We are also talking about the reforms which are needed in the multilateral financial institutions, which is significant because globally we see the debt has been increasing. So even in case of US also, particularly there were concerns related to the USA hitting the debt ceiling of 100%. So how globally it would be impacting the stability of the financial system is very crucial. So APEC Forum was created during a period of Sino-US cooperation. Now it finds itself at the center of escalating tensions between Washington and Beijing. So its core mission of fostering economic integration across the Pacific, it has come under fire from the Trump. So then IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, is there. It was the Biden administration responded by launching this, which is a more flexible arrangement focusing on digital trade, supply chain resilience, clean economy, clean energy. So India has already moved in this direction, and we are talking about that again, having a relook or reviewing, including India back into the generalized system of preferences, GSP, which was again removed. India was removed from it. So India is invested in the national development of the renewable energy solutions, negotiated new bilateral trade deals also. So I said we talked about recent changes and the quadrilateral forum, and then the mineral security partnership, global partnership on AI, Artemis Accords. So India needs to invest more vigorously in these initiatives until the conditions for productive multilateralism they re-emerge in the global arena. So however, we are focusing upon our areas of important concern. And again, India is not dependent upon any other country for this. Small victory as nations approve new carbon market rules. This is under COP29. So finance talks will begin. Developing nations they reject the initial proposals regarding that. So one progress will be talking about new carbon market rules. So which is important in terms of mitigating the impacts of climate change, which is duly needed. So carbon market would help in carbon trading also. It would be another reliable source to generate revenue for different companies and organizations who will be indulging into it. And this will promote more of participation here. So, so an entity that emits less than what is expected of it earns the carbon credit, and which can be traded for money with another entity that is unable to achieve. So that's how they are able to generate more revenue. So it is being termed as breakthrough. Let's see now what is going to happen regarding the financial aspect. India's fossil-based CO2 emissions to spike 4.6%. So this we have already discussed. COP29 is underway. Here's what is on table in annual climate forum, this conference. So Conference of Parties, it's a meeting of the members of UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. It's an international agreement signed in 1992. So periodic meetings, which are called COPs, the Conference of Parties, are held in order to make further progress and the changes which are needed. So different COPs and their achievements. So breakthrough came at COP3 in Kyoto 1997. Parties adopted Kyoto Protocol, and it is again they place their obligations on the rich and the industrialized countries to get their greenhouse gases emissions. Targets varied by countries but averaged at 4.2% reduction. Then Kyoto Protocol, however, did not last long as the wealthy and the powerful countries say they weren't happy. So US was most powerful again and they signed the protocol, but they have not yet ratified it. So this is one important fact. Then at COP15, Copenhagen 2009, then they established a successor to the treaty, but then again it failed. And COP21 we had Paris 2015 led to Paris Agreement, legally binding international treaty hai, aimed to target a reduction of temperature of 2 degrees Celsius increase from the pre-industrial levels. And next milestone, it came COP26 Glasgow 2021, where Glasgow Pact was signed. So phasing down of the use of coal was their inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. This had to be phased out. And COP28 Dubai Loss and Damage Fund was officially launched. Now we have COP27. So carbon market trading mechanism, the rules around this has been formulated. Now let's see what is going to come out as far as climate finance is concerned. So new collective quantified goal is the key word. So it's a new amount that must be mobilized by developed countries every year from 2025 onward to finance the climate action in developing countries. So far, no, not much progress around this, but the important thing is how we are going to achieve a level playing field in this context, how we are going to track, even in terms of carbon trade mechanism, how we are going to ensure that there is no greenwashing happening. So we need to make this process more transparent. So efforts in the waste segregation fall short. Prompt, quick fix solutions are needed for this. For the waste disposal via incineration at the waste to energy plants, mixed waste adds to the waste. So behavioral change, firstly, is very important as far as waste segregation is concerned in terms of degradable, biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste, or even the medical waste. So this is regarding the waste to energy plant in Delhi. So here important institution stakeholder is CSI NEERI Institute. So the report to the NGT has been submitted, operations of different waste to energy plants. So engineered landfill sites is the one part of the solution, apart from the behavioral change that is needed, and only 55% of the waste generated in the municipal wards was being segregated at source. So wet and mixed waste not only result in incomplete combustion and generation of the hazardous waste, it was also causing emissions of highly toxic gases. And also another aspect is the location of these landfill sites is close to the human habitations. So that is generating toxic gases. It is the liquid which becomes again the waste which is being generated from this heap of waste is getting leached into the soil and further into the groundwater. So uh, this is creating a rot. So role of DPCC, CPCB is important. And all the waste to energy plants, they have been established under the PPP model. So do we need more of waste to energy plants? And effectiveness of the function of the current ones that we have needs to be looked into. So Union Environment Ministry, Delhi Pollution Control Committee, responsible for the statutory clearances of these environmental safety and the plant operations. So proper monitoring is needed. Then solid waste management rules 2016. So waste segregation is mandatory under this. It is impacting again the operational capacity or the efficiency of working of these waste energy plants, merely because waste is not being segregated. So it's an important part of the circular economy and the 3 Rs that we talked about. Sewage network upgrade holds key to rescuing Yamuna from its plight. Many parts of the Delhi not covered yet. That's one major challenge. Existing problems is lack of complete coverage of unauthorized colonies, intermixing of sewerage drains with the stormwater drains, all major drains not yet tapped, untreated sewage falling into Yamuna. So these we can talk about the challenges in the urbanization that we face regarding health and hygiene and waste treatment particularly. Hundreds fall victim to Goa cash for job scam. 20 cases filed so far, 19 arrested. So the Chief Minister of Goa states will not stop just by filing cases. Property will be seized and attached and ensure that money is returned. And we will follow up every case till the end. We will ensure that victims get their money back. So it needs to be effectively monitored also. And we see that because of digitization or even unemployment is also one of the major reasons why people fall into this trap. कि आप cash दो, आपको job guaranteed मिलेगी. That is because of unemployment. So of late, in the context of Goa, firstly, we talk about promotion of sustainable tourism, sustainable adventure tourism also. We can promote again more trekking in Goa because coastal tourism, we know that that is again one of the major attractions. But another areas like these trekking can be promoted in adventure tourism. Secondly, mini Silicon Valley in Goa that is being talked about and real estate development. But all of that needs to be sustainable, that needs to be in sync with the environment impact assessment reports and should not lead to long-term consequences as far as the environment sustainability and the conservation, biodiversity conservation is concerned. Inaugural Delhi Defense Dialogue itself must be ready for gray zone and hybrid warfare. Gray zone warfare and hybrid warfare, these are the two key words as far as internal security and the challenges is concerned. So these are the conflicts between peace and full-scale military battles. So these are neither full-scale battles, but these are again happening in a way constantly in the background also we can talk about. So it's a mix of, we can say, shift towards the unconventional warfare such as terrorism, cyber attacks, hybrid warfare. These are the challenges. Changing geopolitical factors and technological scenario, usage of drones, as we are saying that modus operandi includes usage of drones as far as the drugs trade is concerned across the border. So we need improvising the training curriculum, forging new defense partnerships around the world. So adaptive defense, the keyword, as not merely a strategic choice, but it's a necessity now. Then scale of psychological warfare also is another challenge. So defense mechanisms to continuously evolve to effectively counter the emerging threats. And in this also, India is talking about promoting more research and development, promoting self-sufficiency and indigenization, reliable certification mechanisms, facilitate Indian intellectual property creation, IPR, situational awareness, flexibility at the strategic and tactical levels, resilience, agility, and integration with the futuristic technologies. These are the keys to understand and create adaptive defense. Very, very important paragraph. So JM in Congress led 2019. So Jharkhand polls are talking about here at its stake in first phase of the Jharkhand polls. So the currently the states which are heading towards elections includes Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh. So clean energy future, we are always talking about now sustainable development, clean energy, renewable energy, green energy transition, then phasing down of coal. So sustainable tourism. So everything is now like greenwashing also or sustainable waste management. Everything is now being integrated in a manner. So under the guidance of Prime Minister Modi ji, able leadership of Uttarakhand Chief Minister, so the state of Uttarakhand introduced Uttarakhand state solar policies. So similarly, coastal states also need to think about formulating like wind energy policies or the tidal energy policies in order to properly leverage the opportunity and the benefits that they have for inclusive development, assuring energy security and renewable energy and sustainable development, ultimately meeting a Panchamrit targets. Also from the perspective of ease of doing business and promoting Make in India. So payment security mechanism, land bank and direct benefits to local communities, manufacturing incentives. So even PLI scheme, for example, we have as an incentive scheme. So China, Pakistan collusion, security risk for India and US. So Trump NSA, the National Security Advisor pick, that's what he has stated. And here we are talking about even from the perspective of regional security also for India, because we are sharing borders, land borders with both China and Pakistan. So the working of SEO, the working of SARC is somewhere dependent upon our relations and resolution of the challenges that we have at the bilateral level. And also now like global level, we were talking about the trade security, and then from the perspective of achieving the target speed, climate mitigation also, or the stability and the peace and the following the international democratic order in the Indo-Pacific region as well. So, like the US, India, they recognize China is a rapidly growing threat. Not only is it attempting to capitalize on our withdrawal from Afghanistan, so US's withdrawal from Afghanistan, so China is trying to increase its role, and it goes against both US and India's interests. China is also pressuring India on its own borders that we've been talking about. We have resolved the conflict through de-escalation, disengagement, and agreed on certain common areas. So MAGA thinking is being talked about, upgrade of the current partnership into a formal alliance. We have economic concerns, even from the perspective of like the imports from China surpassing $100 billion for India is a major challenge now. So diversification of the supply chain, diversification of again the trade partners is important, and along with that, the self-sufficiency. So be it like China is major monopoly in pharmaceuticals, technology, critical minerals. So when we're talking about institutions of eminence, and transforming these public universities into research and development engines, that's interrelated. Formulation of Anusandhan National Research Foundation to promote again more of research and development, higher education institutions, national labs in a hub and spoke model, and then partnerships for accelerated innovation and research programs. Also, as a percentage of GDP, we have meager 0.7% of GDP allocated for research and development. That needs to increase. We need world-class R&D. Indian public universities, they have a legacy of world-class R&Ds. But when it comes to the number of patents that we file, that's very, very less, very incompetent. Uh, Even in when we're just comparing it with China, also they are filing close to 53,000 patents in 1 year. And for India, it is, I think, close to 5,000 only. So apart from this, faculty plays important role in the public universities, and then the existing research parks, incubators, industry consultancy cells in the nationally funded higher education institution, national labs, they should be expanded to mentor faculty from Indian public universities in translational R&D. So structured training programs are needed, like Bits Pilani we're talking about, IITs, their role, IISCs. So mentors, they should spend semester in the public universities. So more participation by the mentors, basic and translational R&D. Like the metrics for R&D in Indian public universities, they should focus on quality, less on quantity. So national institutional ranking framework, it can be linked to that also. UGC and National Accreditation and Assessment Council, which goes for ranking of these institutions. And we should learn from the recent studies like Niti Aayog's improving the culture of R&D in state universities and institutions. So there are UGC guidelines also for the establishment of like R&D cells in higher education. R&D cells होने चाहिए, जो कि हर जगह नहीं होते हैं. Department of Science and Tech, state university research excellence. It should be focused at state level. So Anusandhan National Research Foundation outlay of rupees 50,000 crores. Major of this would be provided by the private sector. R&D strategy होनी चाहिए. We should move towards जो major areas of concern है. Environmental studies है जैसे. In terms of economics, like we can talk about the behavioral economics, उस पे और focus होना चाहिए. And जो current dilemmas हम face कर रहे हैं, for example, rising food inflation. So how that is linked. So proper, more deeper research in that would be helping us. So these area needs to be prioritized. Apart from STEM sector, we know that is already a priority. To do's. So today's wars really ever end? Do they really end? So यहाँ पे again हम जो अभी ऊपर बात कर रहे थे हाइब्रिड वॉरफेयर की, ग्रे वॉरफेयर की. सो और या फिर हम कोल्ड वॉर की एक तरीके से बात करते हैं. दैट्स वन थिंग कि दे आर नॉट डायरेक्ट वॉर्स बट that they are an ongoing war. It can be interpreted from that perspective. And another is again, Ukraine Russia conflict is not coming to an end. Israel Hamas conflict is escalating further. So no one is talking about in a way or comprehensively. We are not seeing major initiatives being taken to bring these wars to an end. Ceasefire की बात होती है, but again, how will be restoring peace is the thing. And global trend, we are seeing different conflicts. चाहे अगर हम बात करते हैं, be it in Yemen, be it again between Iran, US. So instead of like when talking about this global trend, instead of seeing more peace and stability, there's more instability in the Asian region particularly. So post World War II conflicts that ended for a bit and then they were revived. Just over 10% were those that ended with the peace agreements. 46% concluded with low activity. The Indo-Pacific region में भी हम एक तरीके से बात कर सकते हैं कि that is also an example of grey warfare, cyber tactics use करना. The foreign hand, it has changed massively in involvement of foreign governments in the conflicts that take place. Proxy wars are being fought. So much of multiple things are happening at the same time that again एक तरीके से अपना profit देख रहे हैं जो companies हैं which are promoting again more of defense equipment manufacturing. They are looking from the perspective of increasing their own profits. So while there is no right way to end a war, this might be the least right of all. But it is important to end the war. Russia-Ukraine war started in 2022. USA has spent $64 billion in military to aid Ukraine. And then the climate emissions, that is also the challenge, which the war is further aiding to, or it is further increasing the climate emissions. So war has been a cultural commodity for as long as people they have expressed themselves creatively, but for that the end of the war has to be rendered with a flourish and a spirited closure with the war heroes and treaties and surrenders and victory speeches. So right now we see blurry outcomes. Renewable energy endeavors again in Uttarakhand or across different states. We see state government to give 50% electricity subsidy. So to promote solar energy, because in hilly states, majorly solar energy is the thing that can be promoted. So water heater program, micro, mini, small hydropower projects, run of the river projects भी promote किए जा सकते हैं. मुख्यमंत्री source स्वरोजगार योजना is there. RMU works Uttarkashi. So RMU is the renovation, modernization, upgradation works, different powerhouses. So power supply और जो ग्रिड की रेजिलेंस है उसको और इंक्रीज करने की बात हो रही है. Power Finance Corporation, different companies providing financial services, nodal agency for enforcing transformative scheme. So distribution infrastructure will experience extensive upgradation, replacing old conductors, all of that. Original people, so indigenous, often voted for votes in India, want both inclusion and autonomy. So we can talk about even the tribals, the indigenous tribes have been uprooted by the European colonialism during again the, and this is not just limited to India, even like New Zealand, Maori are seen as the sovereign people, guaranteed political voice and representation. Australia may indigenous Australians seen as a lesser race. So, indigenous people's rights are individual and collective. Cultural protection cannot be disentangled from the land and ecology. And here we often frame Adivasis either as stewards of a pristine wilderness and lost wisdom, or as deprived from, but aspiring Indians who want a bigger piece of extraction and consumption economy. Not just bigger piece, उनका जो basic level development है वो ही नहीं हुआ है. तो bigger piece of again consumption economy extraction नहीं हो सकता. So example है जैसे protest against the Dakota oil pipeline or against mining projects. जैसे in Odisha we saw again the Vedanta mining project. So उनके all cultural जो rights हैं that needs to be safeguarded, yet ensuring that they are again a part of the development exercise. So their store of knowledge, जो हमारा indigenous knowledge system है उसका critical part है, enriches human inheritance. They even like it can provide us solutions for certain challenges, which again big scale of research and development cannot provide. So indigenous or otherwise, we should have access to the same range of choices, and the world should be big enough for our differences too. So instead of differences, talk about the diversity. So employer among five booked after rescue of 11-year-old domestic help. So she worked in Noida flat for over a year and she was beaten up. So child labor. So employing a child 14 or below, child between 14 and 18 in hazardous occupation is punishable offense in India. So 14 से younger तो आप employ ही नहीं कर सकते हो and 14 to 18 के बीच में hazardous employment में नहीं कर सकते हो. That's a crime. Even BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, relevant sections of Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act. Child Welfare Committee. So no one believes the rosy picture of desilting drains and cleaning Yamuna. High Court of Delhi. No one believes. How do we believe when we see the real ground situation is not seeing any kind of major improvements, or reality is different from what is being stated? Like if we are saying कि desilting measures या यमुना cleaning measures पैसा जा रहा है but वो impact क्यों नहीं दिख पा रहा है, तो how do we believe that? So just see in court itself a large number of people, they are telling you there was earlier no waterlogging in areas such as Defense Colony or Malve Nagar, but suffered this year. So go and speak to the public. Ground reality is different from your presentation. तो जो efforts लिए जा रहे हैं but outcomes are not visible. Cloud over December rate cut because हम expect कर रहे थे कि December monetary policy committee में we might expect some amount of rate cut, but again the challenge is inflation soars to 14-month high in October, breaching 6% mark. Specifically food inflation की अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं, CPI food is at 11% approximately, and only we are talking about CPI, so even that has breached the 6% mark. It is at 6.2. However, we see one positive sign is index of industrial production rebounds, but this is related to again manufacturing activity. Still major challenges, the inflation, CPI inflation and the food inflation in front of RBI. So अगर suppose inflation high है, मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी गोज अहेड विद द इंटरेस्ट रेट कट, जो हम बोलते हैं कि अब रेट कट नहीं होगा तो क्यों नहीं होगा, अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट कट होता है तो इकोनॉमी में मनी सप्लाई और इंक्रीज होगा, एंड एज द मनी सप्लाई इंक्रीजेस इन्फ्लेशन विल फर्दर इंक्रीज. वो हम नहीं चाहते, ऑलरेडी इन्फ्लेशन इज सो हाई, उसको हम टेम या उसको रेगुलेट करने की बात करते हैं टू ब्रिंग इट डाउन टू द 4% टारगेट लेवल. दैट इज वाई रेट कट विल नॉट, but the chances become very, very minimal. So we can lift tariffs if the local players they are unhurt. So this is finance minister on again the Trump threat. So our priority would still be the protection, the competitiveness of the local, the domestic players. जैसे even in terms of जो हार्ले डेविडसन बाइसिकल्स थी, बाइक्स थी, बिग बाइक्स, उस केस में भी ये बोला गया कि इंडिया बहुत ज्यादा टैरिफ इम्पोज करता है. That was one part of the controversy during Trump 1.0. And it is expected that the Trump administration would be imposing 10 to 20% tariffs on all the countries, except China would pay 60% of tariff. So India was accused of being an abuser of the tariffs. It's possible to explain every tariff that is levied by India. It is not to control the imports. The aim and the vision, the objective of imposing each and every tariff is very different. So 18% of India's merchandise shipments are to the US. Major जो even textile sector भी हम बात करते हैं, that is USA is one of the largest export destination for Indian textile industry. So retaliatory duties, trade war, World Trade Organization में disputes resolution would be some of the major things staying in limelight in the upcoming times. 90% India-Russia trade is now happening in local currency that we started this topic with. India-Russia trade, the challenges. So Vostro accounts में पता होना चाहिए foreign entity का एक account इंडिया में होगा that would be opened by the Indian authority to do trade या financial payments in the local currency. उसको Vostro accounts बोलते हैं. 90%. It's a big thing. So India is promoting this facility in arrangement with other countries also like Bangladesh, Belarus, Botswana, Fiji, Guyana, Myanmar, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, Tanzania, Uganda. Also, we are making progress on the free trade agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union. So we run huge trade deficit with Russia. However, this is a challenge. With USA, we are in trade surplus. So trade is in favor of India. As far as India-US trade is concerned, COP29 hails early victory, carbon market progress. It's repeated. What advance estimates says about revival in the agriculture sector? So Agriculture Ministry projected record food grain output for this Kharif season, raising hopes of rebound in the farm economy. But जो MSP operations है, they remain subdued for crops other than paddy. And जो terms of trade है, continue to be tilted against the farmers in most cases. So जब हम terms of trade की बात करते हैं, the ratio between the prices of the exports divided with the prices of imports. So in a way, this is one of the factor or indicator which is telling us about the competitiveness of the Indian trade. So if it is tilted against farmers, we need that it should be in sync with the, or it should favor the farmers. राबी क्रॉप्स की अगर हम बात करते हैं which is the winter season. So rabi crops है wheat, mustard, chana. So even we see that their acreage is expected to rise, which is taking advantage of high soil moisture है because of above normal rainfall during June to September. This is one positive natural factor. High prices होंगे, sorry, high output होगा या high acreage होगा. So with more of production or surplus production and record output, prices can come down. This can be one of the ways through which we will be seeing in food inflation come down, but it's a very time-taking process. So expected gross value added growth for agriculture this financial year is between 3 to 3.2%. And average food inflation in 2020 is against 2.9% during 2016-17 as per our base 6.3%. So बाकी areas अगर हम देखते हैं, oil seeds or pulses ka imports they are falling. This is one positive step and progress we are seeing. So like national oil seeds mission hai, we are promoting domestic production increase hona chahiye because import dependency in oil seeds is still 60% of what we are importing. Import duty और हमने increase करी है on edible oil imports by 20% to further reduce the imports. So we are meeting around 58% of the edible oil demand through imports. And as far as imports is concerned, so it is likely to fall to 15 million ton in this year against 16 metric tons. तो ज़्यादा fall तो नहीं है, but it is on a downward trend only. और pulses की import की बात करते हैं. Imports of pulses may also fall with the higher output prospects. ज्यादा डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्शन होगा तो डेफिनेटली हम इंपोर्ट कम करेंगे. सो आउटपुट ऑफ चना फॉर एग्जांपल 50% ऑफ इंडिया पल्सेस प्रोडक्शन में है. पल्सेस प्रोडक्शन में टोटल में 50% चना है, तो हम सारी पल्सेस ऑब्वियसली इंडिया में नहीं कल्टीवेट कर रहे हैं. बट एडवर्स वेदर कंडीशंस इज अ चैलेंज एंड we will have to relax import duties on yellow pea and desi chana, which would be used as a substitute. So food inflation definitely would be impacted. Consumer price index, consumer food price index, erratic weather patterns remains a threat. ED raised 17 places in Jharkhand because we saw that even in Jharkhand and West Bengal both, in connection with the illegal infiltration of Bangladeshi citizens in India. So they're providing, it is alleged they're providing fake documents to establish their Indian citizenship. So PMLA Act 2002, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So it is believed a woman allegedly entered India by crossing the border with Bangladesh in connivance with private agents, illegal immigrants, threat to internal security. So center urges states to list electricity utility. List electricity utility मतलब कि जो स्टॉक एक्सचेंज है वहां पे आप लिस्ट करो, सो दैट आप जो अगेन रेवेन्यू शॉर्टफॉल्स हैं या फाइनेंशियल एस्पेक्ट को और स्ट्रेंथन करने के लिए, बिकॉज इलेक्ट्रिसिटी डिमांड और इंक्रीज होने वाली है इंडिया के अंदर. सो आर पावर मिनिस्टर स्टेट्स पावर सेक्टर रिक्वायर्स ₹42 lakh crore ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट. तो इतना पैसा आएगा कहाँ से? गवर्नमेंट नहीं पूरा दे सकती है, प्राइवेट सेक्टर खुद नहीं फंड कर सकते हैं पूरा, तो इट इज अगेन जो लोगों की सेविंग्स हैं एंड दे आर ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग दैट इनटू इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, तो आप उसको एज एन इन्वेस्टमेंट अट्रैक्ट करो, सो दैट अगेन बजट डेफिसिट या जो फिस्कल डेफिसिट है, फिस्कल कंसोलिडेशन है, दैट इज ऑल्सो एन इम्पॉर्टेंट एरिया वेयर द पब्लिक सेक्टर हैज टू फोकस. जैसे कंपनीज गुजरात और हरियाणा में दे हैव कम फॉरवर्ड एंड इन्फॉर्म दैट दे आर रेडी फॉर द लिस्टिंग. So AT&C losses of discoms a financial year में that has also increased to 17.6%, and climate change further is a challenge. अगर temperature और increase होगा, more friction, more of heat loss के form में electricity loss होगा. तो चाहे कंपनीज चाहे पावर जनरेशन में हो, ट्रांसमिशन में हो, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में कंपनीज हो, उनको स्टॉक एक्सचेंज पे लिस्ट करना इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाएगा. गवर्नमेंट का टारगेट है 20 गीगावाट्स न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी कैपेसिटी 2032 तक डेवलप करना. अभी इट इज ओनली 2 गीगावाट्स न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी में. ओके, करंट कैपेसिटी 8 गीगावाट्स है न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी में. 20 गीगावाट्स इज द टारगेट. और स्टोरेज कैपेसिटी टारगेट फॉर पम्प स्टोरेज इंक्रीज करना 27 गीगावाट्स तक. So pump storage with this year in prelims we have the question, it's related to renewable energy. Country has to become producing economy by utilizing opportunities presented by Industrial Revolution 4.0, and we have to leapfrog, develop our education infrastructure in tandem with this to surpass global standards. Imports of thermal coal India में fall हो रहा है at the fastest pace 15 months. So this is a progressive thing. Also, shipments into the world's second largest coal importer plunged 31% fall हुआ है. India in top 10 globally for patents, trademarks and industrial designs. तो IPR की जब हम बात करते हैं, we can have a look at the data. Patent progress, India's patent to GDP ratio is up from 144 to 381 in the past decade. But as we were talking about, in India, you can see, as per the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, इंडिया में क्लोज टू 8,700 पेटेंट्स हम फाइल करते हैं. 2023 की फिगर्स हैं. वी आर इन द टॉप 5, but you can see China files 57,000 patents in 1 year. Korea is 15,000. US is 12,000. And the trend, or we can see the growth India में जो हुई है approximately 150% सर्ज देखा गया है because development are seen in IP infrastructure, promotion be it through skills, promotion of innovation, startup revolution हमें देखने को मिला. So through that also we are seeing massive growth. Heightened focus on manufacturing, creative sectors, textiles, tools, machines, and health cosmetics. These are also seeing certain developments in this regard. IP ecosystem. So we need to promote more creative areas, even STEAM sector promote करने की हम बात कर रहे हैं. Domestic innovation, मेक इन इंडिया प्रोग्राम से लिंक्ड होना चाहिए. R&D फ्रेमवर्क हमने इन डिटेल आज बात करी, वो उसका इम्पोर्टेंट रोल है. साइबर क्रिमिनल्स दे आर वेपनाइजिंग द फियर ऑफ लॉ. मतलब वो आपको वीडियो कॉल करते हैं या कॉल करते हैं, देन दे जनरेट द फियर ऑफ लॉ कि अगर आपने ऐसा नहीं किया या आपने लॉ ब्रेक किया है ये कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज हो सकते हैं, तो उसका फियर जनरेट करके दे आर कमिटिंग सच क्राइम्स. जैसे हमने बात करी म्यांमार एंड कंबोडिया में, दे हैव आल्सो बिकम हॉटबेड्स ऑफ साइबर स्लेवरी. साइबर स्लेवरी मतलब लोगों को लेके जाया जाता है कि आपको जॉब मिलेगी, बट अल्टीमेटली फिर उनको फोर्स किया जाता है कि आप ही साइबर क्रिमिनल की तरह एक्ट करो, या एज अ साइबर स्लेवरी आपको वहां पे फोर्सफुली एम्प्लॉय किया जा रहा है. So we are taking the help of AI, particularly RBI is formulating such measures so as to track firstly these crimes. Suspicious parcel turned money laundering case. Money laundering is promoted, terror financing भी शायद promote की जा रही हो. Role of blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, उसको misuse किया जा रहा है. Southeast Asian countries, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos. Monetary policy must account for climate risk also, क्योंकि climate risk is linked with inflation, particularly food inflation. Climate risk is also related to income of the people. If income falls, demand will fall, impacting the growth of the economy. That's why it is important, both from the perspective of demand and supply, because if supply shortfall would be there, inflation would be spiking up. So there is always this trade-off between inflation and growth, because suppose अगर RBI inflation rate, repo rate cut करता है, so that is more in favor of growth, less in favor of inflation, because money supply increase होता है तो inflation increase होगी, जो कि हम नहीं चाहते हैं. कि अगर जो हमारा टारगेट है 4%, उससे ज्यादा इन्फ्लेशन ना हो, बट रेट कट होगा तो इन्फ्लेशन इंक्रीज होगी. बट रेट कट करना भी इम्पोर्टेंट है, क्योंकि हमें ग्रोथ भी देखनी है इकोनॉमी में. ग्रोथ होगी जब ज्यादा पैसा होगा, ज्यादा लोगों की इनकम इंक्रीज होगी, डिमांड इंक्रीज होगी, एग्रीगेट डिमांड इंक्रीज होगी, उसकी वजह से प्रोडक्शन इंक्रीज होगी. सो गिग वर्कर्स रिफॉर्म्स जो है इकोनॉमी में, गिग इकोनॉमी, सोशल सिक्योरिटी इंपॉर्टेंट है. इंडिया शुड एम फॉर परफेक्ट बैलेंस. सो गिग वर्कर्स जो बेनिफिट्स हैं, ऑप्टिमल मिक्स ऑफ फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी आपको देता है. प्रोटेक्शन इफ इंडियाज 2020 सोशल सिक्योरिटी कोड इज इम्प्लीमेंटेड वेल, तो दिस नीड्स टू बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड सोशल सिक्योरिटी कोड. सो मल्टी एपिंग रियलिटी है, आप डिफरेंट डिफरेंट एप्स पे, फॉर एग्जांपल आप अगर डिलीवरी बॉय हो तो जोमेटो पे भी साथ में वर्क कर सकते हो, स्विगी पे भी आप वर्क कर सकते हो. तो दिस इज नोन एज मल्टी एपिंग. इवन इन लाइक केस ऑफ उबर, ओला भी ये चीज देखी जा रही है. सो देयर इज दिस पॉजिटिव फैक्टर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस एंड फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, but still they are vulnerable because social security cover is not there. Institute portable benefits होने चाहिए हर प्लेटफॉर्म के. Role of India's code on social security, benefits to all employees and workers, organized और unorganized sector में, और gig workers भी included होने चाहिए. जैसे different schemes है, प्रधानमंत्री ज्योति बीमा योजना, आयुष्मान भारत, प्रधानमंत्री जन आरोग्य योजना, they should be covered. E-श्रम पोर्टल है, और डेटा कलेक्शन में गिग वर्कर्स का भी डेटा होना चाहिए. सेफ्टी ऑफ डेटा इंपॉर्टेंट है, बिकॉज जो डेटा कलेक्ट किया जा रहा है, इन अ वे companies are thinking of again misusing that data in order to know the customers लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल एज की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो उस बेसिस पे आप कोई प्रोडक्ट या अपना बिजनेस एक्सपैंड करने की बात करते हो तो दैट इज नॉट डिजायरेबल बिकॉज यू आर मिसयूजिंग दैट डेटा एंड देन गोइंग अहेड विद इट। तो एक तरीके से ये इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग की तरह ही हो गया। जैसे कैपिटल मार्केट में हम बात करते हैं कि आप कोई ऐसी इंफॉर्मेशन को मिसयूज करते हो जो पब्लिक के पास नहीं है बट वो प्राइस सेंसिटिव है, तो आप इन्वेस्टमेंट डिसीजन लेते हो। तो यहाँ पे भी कुछ उसी तरीके का हो रहा है। So that's all for the day. Thank you so much for joining us on Ansarkari. Stay tuned for further detailed sessions, and I hope this was also fruitful for you.